God, I need a haircut badly. How are you getting your hair? Oh, you're doing your own hair? Oh no, you need to come and do mine. Hi, welcome to Meet the Makers, a video series where I put questions to creators from around the world about their videography and photography businesses, mainly in the wedding industry. But first, I want to share with you a short video about a workshop for videographers and photographers I have coming up later in the year. If you'd like to learn more about the workshop, there's more information in the description below. Today, I'm going to be talking to Richard from Aurora Wedding Films, a Wales-based wedding videographer. Richard has been filming weddings for around 15 years. He has some real colour grading skills and is an expert with a Steadicam, so has some great tips to share. Let's jump straight in with question 1. Well, hi Richard, thanks so much for joining me today. It's really good of you. I'm going to go straight in with question 1, which is how did you get into videography in the first place?
Okay, well, thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. I've been sort of shooting films and videos since probably 1989, I think, when my dad first bought a Video 8 camcorder. And that's initially when I just sort of started wanting to make films and videos and whatever. So me and my friends used to always try and, make these little sort of short comedy sketches and things in the sort of those late 80s, early 90s, really. And then when it came to go to college, after I'd finished my GCSEs, I did film and TV production in college. And really that's how it started from there. I mean, it's just from messing around with friends, really, then turned into a college course. Unfortunately, then I didn't take it any further, really, because at the time I wanted to go to Ravensbourne College, which is the main TV college, well, it was back then, in Croydon, in London, and it was notoriously difficult to get into that college, and that's what I wanted to do, is to be a TV news cameraman. Basically, that's what I wanted to do.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't until I was one of my friends or approached me when I was working in Cardiff and said, "Oh, I'm getting married in a couple of months' time. I know that you've got a video camera. I know you make videos and things, for personal videos and videos with your mates. But any chance you could film my wedding?" And it went from there, really. And I think a lot, from a lot of people I've chatted to in the last sort of few years on our podcast, is that everyone seems to be in that sort of thing as well. With someone asked a friend or a friend asked me if I would do it, and that's how I started in it anyway. So it really fell into the wedding videography by accident.
So you said you shot a friend's wedding, but at what point did you think, like, this is a business, I could do this? Was it straight after that, or did you do a few more, or how did that go?
I probably did 2, I think. So I did the first one, obviously, for free. I think he ended up paying me like 30 quid, I think, for my expenses. And then a friend of his said, "Oh, any chance you can do mine as well?" And I think I did about 3, I think, then. And I thought, hang on a minute, this, it's quite enjoyable. This is, I think I'd like to carry on perhaps doing this. And then I thought, okay, I can't really carry on doing it on just a little Handycam, a Sony Handycam. If I'm going to do something properly, then I'm going to have to invest in something a little bit more professional. And again, I was so out of touch at this time in terms of cameras and things. I'd been really into them probably in the early 90s, when I was in college and we were playing with all the really ridiculously expensive college cameras. But I really didn't know what to get, so I bought this Sony PD170. It was my first camera. It cost me about 4,000, I think it was. Again, only about this probably big, mini DV camera, but a pro one at the time. You know, XLR inputs and everything. Everything. You know, it was a small LCD screen. You know, 4:3, not even widescreen camera, but. And then, using that then, you know, enabled me to make them look slightly better and slightly more professional. And I thought, okay, there is something in this, you know, I can probably carry on doing this. But still on a part-time basis. But the more that I started to do, and then I built I think I was up to about 6 or 7 then. I thought, right, I'm going to have to get a website going now because I really want to charge more than the 150 quid that I'm charging here. I need to start looking a bit more pro. So I got a website together. You know, put some prices on there, and it went from there really, you know, and it sort of exploded really from that point.
And it's good because you've been doing this for a long time, so you've got a good sort of story there, and you can show people how you managed to slowly build it up. It's not like an overnight thing. You're not just suddenly a business like the next day. You know?
No, and I suppose this is sometimes when it's not frustrating. I suppose that's the wrong thing to say really, but. I obviously started very small, you know, and I started charging like 150 quid, 250 pounds for a wedding. And it was a slow step for me to build up to the big money because I never felt I was worth it.
Obviously, you've been doing this for a while. How would you describe your style now, and how did you settle on that? How did you get to that point?
Okay, I suppose, I mean, when I first started, I was just a basic, what I probably call a capture and shoot sort of videographer, you know, just capture the day as it happened, literally start recording from the moment I got there and on tape, and then just not stop, you know, and just capture the moment, everything that happened. Not really thinking about how to make something creative. I was just there to you know, churn out a 3-hour video at the end of it from start to finish, you know, and as in when my edits was when I would do the edit, it would start an opening shot of outside the bride's house, and the last shot of the day then would be the shot of the hotel at the end, you know, with the lights turning off or something, you know, and everything in between was exactly as the day happened. So there was nothing creative at all in it. And I did that for a few years, and I thought, oh man, this is just getting really dull and boring now, and it's just starting to look like everybody else is as in terms of capture the shoot videographers. And I've got nothing against that, obviously, at all, but I wanted to be, you know, to do something different, got a bit more creative, trying to make it look like cinema and more filmy looking. And obviously shooting on a DV camcorder, it was pretty hard to make anything look fairly cinematic, especially when it's a 4:3 frame. It's not even 16:9. It wasn't really until the DSLRs came out, you know, which was, I think I built my first one in 2011, which was the 7D, where then I was like, whoa, this is really how I wanted them to look. This is what I've been chasing for the last sort of 4 or 5 years, really.
Yep.
I like all the lens flary stuff as well, and the vintage sort of style was coming in, and the retro sort of style. So I started filming like that, do that sort of style. And I thought, this is the style I'm gonna do now. Everything's gonna look like this, and everything's gonna be really washed out, low contrast. You know, there's gonna be the blacks are gonna be grey, because I thought that looked cool. But even then I wasn't like, oh, this isn't really great. And I would see some other people's work, and their blacks were black, and they were really nice and contrasty, and their colours looked real as opposed to my bleached out ones. And it took me a while to sort of settle on a sort of a style or a look that I was really happy with. And I probably got that maybe about even as late as probably 4 years ago, really, I think, when I started to use film convert a lot in my stuff, and really, you know, putting the colours back and not taking them out, but still keeping the pretentious black bars, you know, at the bottom and the top as well. So I've squeezed that to a point now where it's literally just a line really of 1 pixel.
So you mentioned you've obviously gone through quite a few cameras over the years. What gear have you settled on now, and why is that the stuff you use? Not just cameras, but, you know, other things, glide cam, stuff like that.
So I've got an A7S2, an A7S, the original one, but also a Blackmagic as well now, which is I bought a year or so, which is the camera that's recording me now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what made you go for the Blackmagic?
It's an awesome camera. You know, the image quality is brilliant. You know, it's ultra sharp. It's very film looking as well, I think. And I've always said this about Blackmagic's thing. It's one of the closest cameras, you know, especially for the price range of it. It's the closest I've seen you can get to looking like film. For me, anyway, that's my opinion for it. It's not. The intention is, I don't think it's for us as wedding videographers. Really, it's not aimed at us at all. But so I have used it commercially. I've done quite a lot of commercial stuff on it. I've shot a music video with it back in September, just gone. Did some stuff as a commercial. Some work in London last December. Obviously, work is slow at the minute. And then I've been on the last 2 days using it to shoot as well. So I have used it quite a lot, really. But again, when it comes back to the wedding season, when that starts up again, it's going to be the A7S, I think. Yeah.
You're one of the people that I noticed early on doing some really nice sort of glide cam stuff and gimbal work. I mean, was that something you wanted to do from quite early on, or did you just buy one? I love
Steadicam. I love Steadicam work. Probably from being a big fan of Stanley Kubrick back in the day. And he used a lot of stuff, obviously, in things like The Shining, where it was sort of developed, the old Steadicam. And for that film and for things like his use of it in any of his films, really, Full Metal Jacket and things like that. I just fell in love with it. The stuff that camera, that you could get a camera into and look ultra smooth running up steps. And it was always something I really wanted to do. I wanted to get my hands on. And, as in when I was playing around and making these sort of short little films and stuff, and we used to try and emulate it. And even when I was in college as well, we used to try and, emulate dolly shots or Steadicam stuff by, trying to make our own with counterweights and things, and pushing each other around in wheelchairs to try and get things smooth, but could never pull it off, really. And it wasn't until I had my, when I had that PD 170, I bought a glide cam HD 2000. No, it wasn't called that. I forget what it was called now. The original glide cam, anyway, for my PD 170, and I did use it at weddings as well. But I could literally use it for maybe 5 minutes tops, and then my back was gone, my arms were gone. It was so unbelievably heavy without a harness. And I gave it up there, and I bought it, and I was like, I just can't use it. It's impossible. And it wasn't until then I had the DSLRs where, I could put a 16mm lens on it then, on say the 5D Mark II, put it on top of the glide cam, and it was amazing. Like 60mm, 60mm wide on a very, very light glide cam as it was, because stripped it of all its weights. The camera was fairly lightweight, the lens wasn't that heavy, it was nothing compared to what I had then. So I was just like, wow, and I just used it all the time from then on. And I do still prefer the look of a glide cam or a look of a Steadicam to a gimbal. It just looks more organic looking. There is a little bit more movement in it. When you walk in, it's not as fluid as a gimbal, and everything's not so electronic or as perfect, I suppose, as a gimbal is, because gimbals are just some of the newer ones. And again, when they're balanced correctly, with a nice lens in it, they're almost too perfect, I think, sometimes. Whereas the glide cam's got a little bit more of a rough and ready edge, or the Steadicam has as well. And
moving on from gear, what software do you use to edit with, and what other software do you use? I think you mentioned Film Convert. So yeah, what's your setup there?
I started on Pinnacle Studio 10, I think was what I started. And I managed to get, and that was rubbish, basically. It would always crash. It would crash more times than what I use now, which I'll come to in a second. But it was very, very basic. If I look back at any of my wedding DVDs now, from what I took back then in 2004, I've got no copies of them now, so God knows what they look like. But I think it would be pretty embarrassing, because I used to use the out-of-the-box fonts and stuff that came with Pinnacle Studio were just really, really bad. There was a wedding slate that you could put up, with flowers in the background and then the wedding of, and I used to use that because it was standard Pinnacle Studio font. When I went full time with it, I had to invest. I bought a new PC, invested in a new PC, and then bought the license for Premiere, and that's what I've been since. Yeah, so I'm still a Premiere user. and I've never learnt Final Cut, even though I run Premiere now on an iMac. And everyone will go, "Well, yeah, how are you doing that? Well, you should be using Final Cut." But yeah, it's what I started with pretty much. In 2009, 2010, and 11 years later, I'm still using it. And I know a lot of people now saying, you should start using DaVinci, or should you learn Final Cut? And I'm like, I can't be bothered to do that, And I'll just stick with Premiere now. I might not be doing this for only another 5 or 10 years. I don't want to learn anything new. And it does everything I want, really. It edits wedding films. What else? I don't really need it for anything else. And I've got, like I said, Film Convert on it. So I do like Lumetri coloring as well. I think Adobe have really done well with their coloring system over the last couple of years. That's really good. When encoder, when the media encoder works, that's good as well. And I do like the fact that you can, when you're in Premiere, and you can right click the audio and open it in Adobe Audition. Right click and edit the audio in Audition, or you can import. If you're that clever enough, you can import direct After Effects files, or you can render things in After Effects. You can right click a scene and say import into After Effects, and you can create sequences in there as well. So I do like that about it as well.
What would you say is your favourite part of the job? Is it the editing process? Is it the filming on the day itself? What do you think is the thing you enjoy the most?
I do like it all, but I probably the element I probably enjoy the most out of all of them, out of the filming, the editing, is boring as it sounds, but grading and color correction, I suppose. Grading can be overlooked as just something you've got to do. You've got to add a bit of color onto it, or make it, or color correct. A lot of people do that, and I think a lot of people don't, and they just shoot what comes out of the back of the camera, which is absolutely fine as well. And again, some clients, do they really care? I suppose. But for me personally, it is one of the things I try to make my films all match up. So I like the first shot, to look the same color and the same feel as the last one, and even if it's shot at different times of day, or in a house or something, when the lighting is at the garbage, it's all horrible tungsten light or something in someone's bathroom or whatever, or wherever you are in a house or in a hotel. And then you've got some glorious outdoor light, and then you've got some, sunny sunset, and then you've got, some disco light. I want to try and make sure they're all balanced up correctly, and so they're not too garishly different, as well. So I do tend to spend quite a long time after I've edited a wedding film, making it look corrected color-wise as I think it should be, as best as I can anyway, using, like I said, Film Convert and Lumetri as well. A lot of Film Convert, a lot of Lumetri as well in Premiere.
With color grading, then you said you use Film Convert. Is that what you do? Are you using a flat profile on the camera and then color grading? How do you do that process? So
I shoot in log, generally on the Sony's S-Log 2 or S-Log 3, or sometimes when it's called for. And I just like the ability that you can retrieve so much back from shooting in log, really.
I think you're the only other person I know that shoots S-Log for weddings.
Well, to be honest, people say, and I've had second shooters for me actually. Leanne, who obviously we both know, she second shot for me a couple of years back. And I said, okay, we're going to shoot in log, and she'd never shot in log before. And then she just looked at the back of the camera and was like, I can't do this, it just looks, there's no color in it. Everything just looks gray. Everything's washed out. And she just couldn't get her head around how this could look like it does, when you get the finished product. And she basically put her foot down and refused to shoot in log. So I let her shoot in her Color EOS profile or whatever it is that she's got set up on her Sony, and then I tried to match up her footage then to mine. In when it came to post, I carried on shooting in log. But the stuff that I think you can just, whether or not it's just again, just you don't have to expose perfectly. I don't think on situations, sometimes, although people think, you got to expose over 2 stops and stuff as well, and to make it look really good and that as well. you can get away with not exposing correctly. If sometimes you shoot the sky and you get such a good dynamic range, from the sky being what looks like washed out in the back of the camera, excuse me, and then maybe a building which is in shadow or something. But then when you bring it back into your editing software, into your grading, color grading software, drop in the exposure, and that sky just appears back. The clouds, you can bring them back. As they're not lost, they're still there, as opposed to perhaps what you would do when you're shooting in, in a different picture profile where it's burning in the image.
What would you say is the biggest mistake you've ever made on a job?
Oh man, this was the worst mistake, which cost me quite a bit of money. Actually, this did as well. Unfortunately, yeah, this was a total error on my part, where I'd filmed a lovely, again, this was a couple of years back, a really, really lovely wedding in the summertime down here in Wales. The bride was quite a paranoid bride, I remember, really. She was really, really worried that something was going to go wrong during the day. Even from when I first met her, maybe 2 years in advance, she seemed quite concerned that something was going to go wrong, really, which alarm bell should have rang really at that point. So the day went absolutely fine. Everything was great. On the day she was really quite calm, tears in the morning because she was, reading cards and stuff, but nothing untoward, nothing strange. Day went fine. They were really lovely. We went some photographs, we did some nice portrait stuff with them. They're a really friendly couple. I had a guy called Jag come down from Birmingham to the second shoot for me. I sent him home early because there was literally nothing happening. So he left about 6 o'clock. He said, "Shall I stay for the first dance?" I was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. There's no point. There's not much happening really. You just get back to Birmingham." It was quite a long trek for him to come down. So I let him go because it's just the first dance. I can film that and film the party. So got back. Put all the cameras. Put the cards in my bag. Went home. Copied everything onto the computer, or so I thought. So it came then to, maybe 4 or 5 weeks later, by the time I got to edit this wedding. Did the, so started off, okay, I'll load everything onto the computer, then put it into Premiere, then sorted everything out to his relevant bins, put, bridal preps, ceremony there, okay, the next bin, portrait shoot, drinks reception, speeches, evening. Oh, where's the evening footage then? Where's the evening stuff? Where's the first dance footage? Went through my file system. Oh, hang on a minute. No first dance. No first dance footage.
Oh, dear.
No evening. Those files were completely missing. That folder itself was just gone, completely. So I was like, oh no, man, what's happened to that now? Sorry, I'll use Jag's back. Oh, I can't. I sent Jag home. I haven't got him either. So I'd not copied the folder across to my computer, from the memory card, or I'd deleted the folder by mistake, which is probably highly unlikely. So I think that when I came to it, I thought I'd copied the memory card onto the computer, and I hadn't. Unfortunately for me, then obviously 5 weeks had gone by. I'd filmed another 6 or 7 maybe weddings since that wedding. And I'd reuse the card, so I know you can recover it if you format it, can't you? But I think as soon as you start using it again, no, it's gone. So it was gone, completely. So I'd lost the first dance, all the evening, all the guy, getting the crowd going, the good singer. So I was like, oh man, what am I going to do? So I did the highlights first. Didn't include any of the first dance and didn't include any of the evening. Sent it out to her and said, oh, look, this is the highlights. And she came back, oh my God, that's absolutely amazing. It's the best thing I've ever seen, blah, blah, blah. Really, really love it. Thanks so much, Rich. You've been amazing. I said, oh yeah, no problem. I said, I've got a slight problem. I said, I got a problem with the card at the minute, that I recorded the first dance on, and I, exaggerated a little bit and said, oh, it looks like it's been corrupted, the card's corrupted. And then her tone just completely and utterly changed. And she was just literally ripped me to hell then from then onwards. She completely, from going wow, this is absolutely amazing. Oh, you've been so... She was, I knew something was going to go wrong. I'd been worrying about this wedding for the last 2 years. She wanted me to take me to court, and I had to ring my insurance company up, and it went back and forth for ages, you know, and it cost me about 1,200 quid in the end, I think, to buy her off. So, you know, I had to give... She wanted about 70% of her cost of her wedding back. It taught me a lesson, obviously. It taught me a lesson not to send my second shooter home early, but also to record a static camera as well, just on the side, on a tripod, just recording the first dance as well, just in case that one camera does fail halfway through the first dance. I've got that backup then of just a static, stationary one as well, but learning the hard way. Yeah, so that was probably the worst thing I've done.
Yeah, obviously you've been doing weddings for a while, and you've mentioned some films and things that you were influenced by. What do you think is your main influence to your work? Is it something wedding related, or is it films you watch, or is it TV shows? What is it that influences your work the most?
Old films from back in the day. One of my all-time favourites, 12 Angry Men, is my all-time favourite film. I love that film so much. Like, I was on the other night on TCM, so I've taped that. I'm going to watch that later, I think. And again, like I said, I mentioned obviously Stanley Kubrick was one that I wrote. For part of the college course, we had to study pretty much every single Stanley Kubrick film and write an essay on it. So I watched pretty much every Stanley Kubrick film. So back when I was first starting the college stuff, that was probably my biggest influence really for filmmaking. You know, was that, and that's something I really, really, really love about some filming techniques is really, really long cuts. Like, you know, all-time favorite, Children of Men. I don't know if you've seen Children of Men.
Yeah, there's a scene in the car which goes on and on and on.
Exactly, there's that
all
one.
The actors were having to like lean down in their seats.
Yeah. If you watch the making of it, isn't it? You know, I think I've watched on YouTube, and they were all like leaning. The car is just doing all these. They've got the guy like who's driving it on the roof and things. You know, he's got this like guy. It's nuts. And there's a really long scene as well, which I love. And that is the battle scene at the end, when we're going through. Where is it? Beck's Hill at the end, and they're going through all these. The immigrants are uprising in the slum that they're in, and there's all these explosions going off, and the choreograph, how they must have choreographed that, it was just blows my mind. You know, the fact that they've got explosions going off in the distance, they've got, you know, minuscule guys in the far distance who are getting shot and stuff, and it's the planning that goes into that. Just, it's amazing. Just those type of shots just blow my mind. Those sort of long shots, that really fascinates me. The whole single take one shot stuff really, really fascinates me.
How shoot a wedding, but in one.
Yeah, how could we do that? Any ideas we could perhaps do that? I don't know how.
Yeah, the problem is you haven't got the Children of Men, like people chucking flaming.
Yeah, exactly.
Cars or whatever is down a hill at you, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're coming into wedding season quite soon. What's the main thing you think you want to improve on in the next year? I've always got something I'm trying to sort of slightly improve about, either my camera work or colouring or editing. What is it you think you'd like to improve on?
Editing times, I think, really. You know, the fact that I get so behind, you know, especially in a... It does worry me, I think, a little bit that, you know, potentially I could do 35 weddings this year. It's not. I don't think it'll be as many as that, obviously, now, you know, with the way things are going. But potentially I could have done maybe 35, maybe even 40 weddings this year with everyone from last year, you know, moving forward. So in a good year, I've had 17 weddings in a backlog. So I'm rubbish at, you know, at planning my edit time, really. I think what the problem I get is that, you know, I might shoot a wedding in perhaps, you know, start of April or end of March, you know, when wedding season generally starts kicking off at Easter time. And rather than editing that wedding straight away, or, you know, in a week after that, I'll be very complacent and just say, oh, you know, I've got 4 weeks before they need that wedding back yet. You know, I promised them. I said a wedding turnaround is like 10 weeks. You know what? I'm not going to worry about that. And then I get a bit complacent. I start doing other things. I might do some in the garden, or I'll just watch YouTube or something. You know, and And the next thing I know, I've shot another 5 weddings, and I haven't started that one originally. So that's probably one of my biggest issues, and something I would really like to improve on was getting my editing done quicker and turn that around a lot. Not necessarily faster in terms of the actual editing of it, but just being a bit more regimented and a bit more strict about my editing time, and when I should start doing it, really. Because, I mean, I don't know about yourself. I mean, it generally takes me, I would say, probably a week, maybe, I suppose, to edit a wedding start to finish, when I concentrate on it. I'd probably do it a little bit faster if I had time, but when you've got kids and you've got other things on, that sort of goes out the window, really. To have 17 weddings in a backlog is hell,
What would you say is your top tip for someone who's just starting out now? If there's one thing you thought, I wish I'd focused on that more at the beginning, or I wish I hadn't worried too much about that, what would you say is your top tip?
I think perhaps a lot of people just buy literally everything going. They'll buy all the kit, they'll buy all the 3 cameras, they buy gimbals, they buy lenses, they buy all the microphones, and instantly think I can do it now, I've got all the kit. But I think a lot of us know that it's not just all about that, really. So I think that would be one of the things I would say, is that don't go completely wild on buying on kit straight away. Get a decent camera. It doesn't have to be a Sony A7S III. You could easily pick up a 5D Mark II and start messing around with that, really. They're cheap as chips. Or and make sure you back up your footage as well. Don't make that mistake.
yeah. Make sure you definitely copy your footage off the card.
Obviously, we all want to make amazingly cool and brilliant cinematic films and stuff, and be really creative and things with them as well. But there's obviously a lot of stuff behind it as well in order to make them look that good, and to keep the business running as well. Business advice, I suppose, that would be for backups and things, and get a decent, nice website going. That's a good, obviously a good tip as well. And you can do that yourself as well. Obviously, there's so many places you can do a website yourself now. You don't have to pay designers thousands and thousands of pounds.
No, I think that's really good, nice advice. If people want to find you, or they want to look at your work, they want to see how thin your aspect ratio is, where are the best places to find you? Where should is it website, Instagram?
Sure. So if you want to laugh at my my ridiculously narrow ridiculously narrow aspect ratio, or whatever you want to call it, so I'm Aurora Wedding Films. So at Aurora Wedding Films on Instagram and on Facebook as well, and then I think I'm on Twitter as well at Aurora Video, and then www.auroravideo.co.uk is where you can see the majority of my stuff, and on the Vimeo and things as well. So so that's the wedding stuff. Yeah,
sure. And also you run a podcast, which you've been running for years, for people who do video. So how do people find you there?
Okay, so we've got a podcast which has got around about 150 plus episodes at the moment on it, in which Toby himself has been a guest at one time. So that's called Our Week in Video, which you can find on iTunes or on Spotify if you just type in Our Week in Video. We've also got a website, owiv.co.uk, which again has the complete back catalogue of episodes as well. So it's just right back from the start. I think it was 2015. I think we started doing that. So there's the older ones. Obviously, we're talking about Canon cameras and whether or not we can upgrade to Sony cameras as well. So some of those episodes are a bit outdated, but there's a lot of good advice on some of them. In terms of how to film weddings and what you need to take to a wedding. Tips and tricks of the day. Why would you need an ND filter, and what cards should I use? How to prolong battery life. There's loads and loads of episodes talking about that type of stuff, as well as some obviously amazing guests and stuff that we've had on over the years. So it's definitely worth a listen if you're bored when you're jogging or you're in your car and you're going to a wedding. They're always a good way of passing the time, I suppose, when you're not looking at YouTube, I guess. So yeah, you can just listen to me in your head. You don't have to concentrate too much.
No, that's great. That's great. Thanks very much, Rich.
No, my pleasure. Thank you, mate. I really, really appreciate you. Thanks for asking me to come on and chat to everyone today. And hopefully that I've said something that people can take away, and anything useful was good. Hopefully. But thank you.
Thanks to Richard for sharing some great insight with us from his many years working in weddings. You can find links to his website and his Instagram, as well as information about his podcast, Our Week in Video, in the description below. See you in the next episode.